Good evening. We are holding a charter school public hearing for Innova Girls Academy Charter School, and the date is September 22nd, 2022. The Education Law, Subdivision 2857, Section 1, and regulations of the Commission of Education 8, NYCRR Section 119.4, require the board to conduct a public hearing within 30 days of receipt of notice of an application for a new or revised charter school. The Board of Education of the Rochester City School District is conducting this public hearing regarding a charter school revision. The purpose of this hearing is to gather community input to provide to the New York State Education Department regarding the application. Innova Girls Academy Charter School, current charter school term is September 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2028. Innova Girls Academy Charter School is requesting a revision to amend the charter school's organizational chart to reflect significant changes beginning in the 2023-2024 school year. A determination regarding this revision has not yet been made and is currently under review by the New York State Education Department. Are there any speakers for this charter school?
There are no speakers and there are no comments submitted to the record.
Hearing no speakers or no comments, this public hearing is now closed. Okay. Opening the charter school public hearing for University Preparatory Charter School for Young Men, September 22nd, 2022. The law subdivision 2857, Section 1, and regulations of the Commission of Education 8 NYCRR Section 119.4 require the board to conduct a public hearing within 30 days of receipt of notice of an application for a new or revised charter school. The Board of Education of the Rochester City School District is conducting this public hearing regarding a charter renewal application. The purpose of this hearing is to gather community input to provide to the New York State Education Department regarding the application. University Preparatory Charter School for Young Men is located at 1290 Lake Avenue, Rochester, New York 14613, in the Rochester City School District, and chartered to serve 450 students in grades 7 through 12. This school seeks a 5-year renewal of the charter commencing August 1st, 2023. According to the renewal application, the school will expand to serve 525 students in grades 6 through 12. Are there any speakers for this public hearing?
There are no speakers or comments submitted to the record for University Prep Charter for Young Men.
All right, thank you. And having said that, this public hearing is now closed. Good evening. Welcome to the September 22nd, 2022 Board of Education Business Meeting. And I would like to call this meeting to order. I'm going to ask if Commissioner Powell could lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, if she doesn't mind. Thank you, Commissioner Powell. I'm going to turn it over to our board clerk, Ms. Wade, and this is her last board meeting. And I just want to take this opportunity just to thank her so very much for all the work that she has done. I'm a little upset with Carrie Pecourse. I don't know where she is, and hopefully she's listening. But we certainly wish her well, and we know that Carrie is getting a phenomenal employee in her department, so thank you very much. And so with that, I will turn it over to you to share what are the upcoming events.
Okay, wonderful. So good evening, everyone. The upcoming events for October, which is coming right along, the board will be hosting a policy committee meeting on October 4th. There will be a board work session to discuss the suspension process on Thursday, October 6th. We do want to promote that very much. We will be talking about, and the board will be talking about the various components of disciplinary action in the schools, and it will be a great way to learn about how to navigate that process if it is that you're a student who is currently going through that, as well as how to appeal that if that ever happens. And they'll be looking at the short-term as well as the long-term suspension process holistically across the board. There will also be an ESA meeting on October 11th, an FMP public hearing on October 12th, and we are still determining the location of the public hearings for the Facilities Modernization Program, so please stay tuned for that. There will also be another one on October 20th as well. One of those will possibly be a virtual session, so we will provide additional information. The Finance Committee will meet. That is their on month, so they'll meet on October 18th. HR will not be meeting in October to facilitate that. The last FMP public hearing will take place on October 25th, and that one will be in person here in Conference Room 3AB, and following that, there will be a board work session. The Hispanic Heritage Month will be recognized and observed before the business meeting on October 27th, and thereafter at 6:30, we'll be here again for the business meeting. If you can scroll to the next page. Thank you. Once again, do want to just advise that if anyone wants to address the board at business meetings or at special meetings, you may do so by calling us, extension 8525, or you may email the board at boardof.education@rcsdk12 by noon of the day of the meeting. We are also constantly recruiting for parent representatives to the committees. The committees that you see on the screen are expecting applications, and so if you're interested, please be sure to visit the website www.rcsdk12/BOE parent rep. And again, just letting you know that President Elliott will be starting her office hours in the month of October. The first one will take place on October 3rd, and RCSD employees are welcome to set up a meeting with her for a 30-minute session on Mondays, starting at 6 p.m.
And also students.
And students. Once you have a RCSD email address, you're able to sign up on the website. You do need to log in with your one-to-one account. And that completes it.
Thank you, Ms. Wade. The next item on the agenda is the approval and acceptance of the minutes from May 26th, from the business meeting, June 23rd, August 25th, 2022 for all of those. The minutes from the August 26th board retreat, the minutes from the board work session, which is the FMP Phase 3 discussions, and the minutes from the September 1st, 2022 board work session. That includes discussing the 22-23 board goals and FMP Phase 3. Is there a motion for those minutes?
Motion.
Moved by Commissioner Malloy, seconded
Second.
by Commissioner Simmons. Any discussion on those minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
I will record manually because you took in a bundle, so I'll
Okay.
do those.
Okay. And I think we have one speaker for this evening, Janiyah Noble. Is she here? Ms. Noble?
Yeah, she's here.
Good evening.
Peace.
All right. So whenever you're ready, you have 3 minutes.
Okay. I am here on the behalf for myself, my children, and the homeschoolers of this district. It has been brought to my attention that the homeschoolers are not provided, they're not able to receive Chromebooks, and I asked that that be revised. I went through the policy, the homeschool manual, and it stated that the district is not obligated to loan Chromebooks and et cetera materials, but if it's available, it could be extended. I'm just asked that that policy be revisited and possibly be amended and changed. I believe our children have the right to Chromebooks. We live in a city, my husband and I still pay taxes for our children, so to be denied simple resources for our children is a constant, you know, I'm gonna be quite frank, a constant slap in the face. You know, the district has a plethora of issues, and I know with this being one of them, so I ask that on behalf of myself and the other homeschoolers of the community that that policy be amended. That's all I got.
Thank you. That does conclude our speakers list for the night. There are no comments submitted to the record.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to ask for a motion, since we have both Commissioner Malloy and Patterson on Zoom, that we suspend the terms of the video conferencing policy 2350. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
I'm going to take the motion from Commissioner Simmons and the second from Commissioner Adams. Any conversation, any questions about that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
The online voting is open.
Yep, thank you.
I will take Commissioner Patterson and Commissioner Malloy's.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is council reports, and the first one is the Parent Leadership Advisory Council.
They're coming into the room from Zoom right now.
All right, thank you.
They're connected. You may just need to re-prompt them.
Hello, who's on the, hi. Could you give the report for plaque, please?
Hi, my name is Kristen Miller. I'm doing on track report. Rochester City School District Board of Education Business Meeting September 2022. The quality and inclusive expectation and accountability continue to be arises. Students are the stakeholders, the parents are the decision makers. Thank you for the time and space to share. Please forward the questions, comments, or concerning to PLAC, PLAC at rcsdk12.org. Thank you for your time, the leadership team of PLAC.
Thank you very much. The next report is the Bilingual Education Council report. Thank you.
President Elliott, I will be translating the BEC report into English.
Thank you. Good evening. Oh, she heard me.
Good evening.
Dibet, buenas noches. Yo voy a traducir si tú lees un párrafo y después yo leo un párrafo contigo.
Ok, está muy bien. Voy a comenzar.
Sí.
Buenas noches. Soy Dibet García, vicepresidenta del Concilio de Educación Bilingüe. Estoy aquí con el resto de los oficiales del BC.
Good evening. I am Dibet Garcia, Vice President of the Bilingual Education Council, and I'm here with the rest of the BEC officers.
El Consejo de Educación Bilingüe está formado por padres bilingües, organizaciones comunitarias y educadores que representan y defienden los derechos educativos a una educación bilingüe de calidad para nuestros estudiantes en el distrito.
The Bilingual Education Council is made up of bilingual parents, community-based organizations, and educators representing and advocating for the educational rights to a quality bilingual education for our students in the district.
Estamos entusiasmados con la expansión del Departamento de Educación Bilingüe e Idiomas del Mundo, que incluye el restablecimiento del puesto de director ejecutivo. Annalí Cruz Pomani ocupa este cargo y se une a la recién nombrada directora de Educación Bilingüe, María Petrella, y la recién nombrada directora de Inglés como nuevo idioma, Michelle Sadik.
We're excited about the expansion of the Department of Bilingual Education and World Languages that includes the reinstatement of the Executive Director position. Annalí Cruz Pomani serves in this position and is joined by the newly appointed Director of Bilingual Education, Maria Petrella, and the newly appointed Director of English as a New Language, Michelle Sadik.
BC también ha incluido en entrevistas para puestos adicionales. Le recordamos al Board of Education que por favor participe e incluya la voz del BC en el reclutamiento y selección de un nuevo superintendente. También solicitamos que el superintendente interino se reúna con los líderes del Concilio de Educación Bilingüe para discutir su visión y el plan de colaboración este año.
BEC has also been included in interviews for additional positions. We remind the Board of Education to please engage and include the voice of the BEC in the recruitment and selection of a new superintendent. We also request that interim superintendent meet with the BEC leaders to discuss his vision and plan for collaboration this year.
El BC celebró su primera reunión este martes 13 de septiembre en el Centro Rec de Trenton y Pamela Jackson. Keisha Holloman y María Encarnación compartieron una descripción general de la Oficina de Estudiantes con Discapacidades. Discúlpame. Compartieron una descripción general de la Oficina de Participación de los Padres. Elisa de Jesús Ibero compartió habilidades de autodefensa para familias de estudiantes con discapacidades. El Departamento de Educación Bilingüe e Idiomas del Mundo distribuyó y discutió los derechos de los padres con familias multilingües. El Consejo se reunió con María Petrella, la nueva directora de Educación Bilingüe, le hemos pedido al Departamento Bilingüe que ayude con el cuidado de los niños durante la reunión.
The BEC held its first meeting on Tuesday, September 13th at the Trenton and Pamela Jackson Recreation Center. Keisha Holloman and Maria Encarnacion shared an overview of the Office of Parent Engagement. Elisa de Jesus from Ibero shared self-advocacy skills for families of students with disabilities. The Department of Bilingual Education and World Languages distributed and discussed parent rights with multilingual families. The council met Maria Petrella, the new director of bilingual education. We have asked the bilingual department to help assist with childcare during the meeting.
El Departamento de Educación Bilingüe e Idiomas del Mundo informó al Concilio de Educación Bilingüe que se comunicaron con los representantes de las escuelas para padres para confirmar la continuidad de la representación. Cada escuela primaria bilingüe tiene al menos un representante. Nuestras escuelas secundarias Wilson, Edison, Monroe, Upper and Lower necesitarán identificar nuevos representantes. BEWL colaborará con los directores de las escuelas en nuevos representantes, incluidas las escuelas primarias, para garantizar 2 representantes. Todos los representantes de los padres deben identificarse a más tardar 60 días desde el comienzo de la escuela. La representación es fundamental y el año pasado el proceso de identificación de estudiantes y padres tomó más de 6 meses.
The Department of Bilingual Education and World Languages has reported to the BEC that they contacted parent school representatives to confirm continued representation. Each bilingual elementary school has at least 1 representative. Our secondary schools, Wilson, Edison, and Monroe Upper and Lower, will need to identify new representatives. BEWL will collaborate with school principals on new representatives, include elementary schools, and ensure 2 representatives each. All parent representatives need to be identified no later than 60 days from the start of school. Representation is critical, and last year the process of identifying students and parents took well over 6 months.
Cada escuela secundaria ha nombrado representantes estudiantiles que serán confirmados por el BEWL. Shalim Natter. Rivero trabajará con Elaine Martínez, entrenadora de estudios latinos de BEWL, para cultivar un grupo de defensa estudiantil dentro del Consejo de Educación Bilingüe.
Each secondary school has named a student representative that will be confirmed by the BEWL. Shalim Nader from Ibero will work with Elaine Martinez, the Latino Studies coach from BEWL, to cultivate a student advocacy group within BEC.
Quiero que sepan que me disculpo, que soy madre de un niño de educación especial. El Consejo ha pasado el verano trabajando con grupos de padres y agencias que promueven los derechos de los padres, y el Consejo han asistido a las reuniones de PLAC y CPAC, así como colaboró con la agencia infantil Children's Agenda. Promovió el Consejo en el Festival Puertorriqueño y la Jornada de Divulgación Ibero, y se presentó a los asistentes de escuela en el hogar del distrito en colaboración con la Oficina de Participación de Padres.
The council spent the summer working with parent groups and agencies promoting parent rights and the council. They have attended PLAC and CPAC meetings, as well as collaborated with the Children's Agenda, promoted the council at the Puerto Rican Festival and Ibero Outreach Day, and presented to the district homeschool assistants in collaboration with the Office of Parent Engagement.
La nueva directora, María Petrella, la jefa de comunicaciones, Marisol Ramos López, y la comisionada Beatriz Lebrón asistieron a la reunión de planificación convocada por Rivero el 20 de septiembre del 2022 para la coordinación de servicios para las familias que se mudan aquí o desplazadas por el huracán Fiona. El distrito se ha reunido internamente y está colaborando en temas de defensa con el intercambio de registros estudiantiles, asegurando que se implemente McKinney-Vento y desarrollando un proceso para garantizar que las familias que lleguen sean evaluadas para necesidad fuera de la educación. Esperamos que el distrito comparta su plan para apoyar a las familias y los estudiantes que llegan de Puerto Rico y República Dominicana debido al huracán Fiona y trabajar en colaboración con el distrito escolar de la ciudad de Rochester.
The new director, Maria Petrella, Chief of Communications, Marisol Ramos Lopez, and Commissioner Beatriz Lebron attended the planning meeting convened by Rivero on September 20th, 2022 for coordination of services for families relocating here or displaced by Hurricane Fiona. The district has met internally and are collaborating around advocacy issues with student record exchange, ensuring McKinney-Vento is implemented, and developing a process to ensure families arriving are assessed for needs outside of education. We look forward to the district sharing their plan for supporting families and students arriving from Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic due to Hurricane Fiona and working collaboratively with the RCST.
Como nota final, el 5 de enero, el Concilio de Educación Bilingüe organizará una celebración del Día de los Reyes Magos en Avalon, en State Park, en Avalon, State Street. Próximamente habrá más información, pero guarden la fecha.
As a final note, on January 5th, the BEC will host a Three Kings Day celebration at the Avalon on State Street. More information will be forthcoming. Please save the date.
Antes de concluir, ¿verdad? Esto es de mi parte. Marisol, si me lo puedes traducir, te voy a agradecer.
Sí, cómo no.
Tenemos padres que quieren participar en las reuniones de PLAC y CPAC, pero no tenemos traductores. Estamos pidiendo que por favor hayan traductores porque queremos que los padres participen, haya más participación de los padres y que ellos también puedan tener acceso a toda la información que es importante para la educación de sus hijos.
She wants to add something on a personal note, which is that parents have been participating in the PLAC and CPAC meetings. She is requesting that translators are available during those meetings to ensure parent participation so that they can be present and advocate on behalf of their children.
Con esto concluyo nuestro informe de actividades. Muchas gracias y que tengan todos buenas noches.
This concludes our activity report. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much, and have a great September.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you very much. We have, the next item is a Student Advisory Council report. I just want to report in this section that we do have a new student rep joining us this year. His name is David Bouillon. He's a senior at Rochester Early College, and he's been elected by the Student Leadership Congress to represent the student body, but he's not here tonight, but he certainly will be joining us in future board meetings. And so I will welcome him when he's here, but I also just want to take an opportunity to welcome him this evening, just in case he watches this board meeting. The next item on the agenda is the board reports. And I'm going to start, there's no report for the Audit Committee, so I'm going to go to the Community and Governmental Relations Committee. Commissioner Adams?
Thank you. CIGR committee met as a committee of the whole on Tuesday, September 6, 2022. During that meeting, I introduced our new CIGR parent rep, Mr. Neil Osuch, and he spoke to the community. Ms. Carmen Perez from the Children's Agenda presented the problems and solutions on equitable funding for pre-K education, which aligned with one of the priorities brainstormed for our 2023 legislative agenda. Also, the new director of the Office of Parent Engagement, Keisha Holloman, introduced herself and presented the vision and goals for the Office of Parent Engagement. Executive Director of Strategic and Community Partnerships, Kelly Briggs, provided an overview of the Strategic and Community Partnerships Department that included the department's vision, mission, and goals. The board also discussed the agenda for the community forum that will be tentatively held in November, and the legislative priorities for the legislative breakfast that will tentatively be held in February. The next CIGR committee meeting is Tuesday, November 1st at 5:30 p.m. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Adams. Commissioner Simmons with the Equity and Student Achievement Report.
Sure, thank you. The Equity and Student Achievement Committee met as a committee of the whole on Tuesday, August 13th, 2022, and during that meeting, the board reviewed and accepted the minutes from the August 9th ESA committee meeting. Also, the Audit Committee collaborated with ESA during this time to review and discuss the 2022 graduation audit. Auditor General Linessa Henry Wheeler presented on the scope of work, findings, and recommendations within the audit. The report also includes the administration's timeline to implement recommendations. At this time, I will entertain a motion to accept the 2022 graduation audit. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. May I have a
Second.
Thank you, President Elliott and Commissioner Adams. And finally, the next ESA committee
You need a
meeting-
vote?
Oh,
You got a motion
thank
and
you.
a
I'm sorry
second.
about that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Me too. Aye. The next ESA meeting committee will take place on Tuesday, October 11th at 5:30 p.m.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. And I'm going to, since Vice President LeBron is not with us at the moment, I'm going to give her report. And I'm going to ask that Chief Financial Officer Sean Farr come to present the 2022 financial reports. And prior to doing that, let me just read the paragraph prior to that. The Finance Committee did not convene this month. However, the committee continues to participate in monthly preview meetings in order to review the district's financials, upcoming resolutions with fiscal impact, as well as any additional reports as needed. This month, the previews meeting took place on Friday, September 16th. So, Mr. Farr, would you like to please present the financial report?
Just let me know when you want to go on your report.
Okay, yeah. Good evening.
Good evening.
Welcome to fall.
Indeed.
Yeah, it's a good fall night out there already.
Yeah.
We're already getting there.
Wait till it get real cold.
We're just trying to keep warm, right? So you've got a packet in board docs. It consists of a cover memo of 3 pages, a summary memo, and then it has backup documentation for each of the summaries. So what I'll do is I'll go through a summary, and then I'll occasionally refer to the backup documentation. The pages are actually referenced in the summary memo. Starting with just pure cash balance, and you can see the activity for the month of August, where we started with $159 million. This is excluding capital funds. And we had receipts of $54 million, disbursements of $70. So we ended at $142 million, which is a healthy amount. The cash flow projection, which is on pages 5 and 6, the page 5 has the cash flow by month, and it's very small print.
Yes, yeah, he's gonna
And so we have page 6 has a graph. Now the graph is actually plotted out by week. There's a big detailed cash flow schedule that goes behind this. The point to emphasize here is you can see as we go from July through the year, we bottom out in January. And that's a normal occurrence. That's our low cash point for the academic year. And but there's actually a point there in the third week in January where we bottom out. And this is roughly, as of August, the projection was roughly $37 million, which is good for us. Now the next week, if you're looking if you're looking at the graph, you'll see that it spikes really up by the end of January. And that's because we get aid from the state. A large aid payment of $115 million comes in the last week in January. So while we're dipping down, it's for a very short period of time, and then our cash recovers, and then you can see the rest year. So as we look at this each year, the critical point is that January spot, and obviously you always want it to be positive so we can pay bills and pay payroll. So that is good. Now what I do plan to do in the future is to add a line. The page 5, which had all the small print numbers, also has the prior year. So what I'm going to do is we're going to add a line on this graph to put a plot over the prior year in, obviously a different color. So then you'll be able to compare and see, are we better, because are we better than last year, or are we worse off? And so that'll help to make that comparison.
Mr. Farr, let me just ask you, how would you like for us to, if we have any questions, you want us to wait until your presentation is completed? So on this graph, how do you, what is the anticipation that beginning, say, from January 23 onward, that we're going to have this kind of increase in our cash balance? Why is that?
Why is that? Well, so you can, it's state aid payments.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I will note, I was just on a call with the city earlier today, and the funding from the city comes in increments during the year, parsed out in $20 million increments. And the layout of that is very helpful because the city gives us, is allocating $20 million to come in the beginning of January. So if you look at our numbers here, that's very critical. So that's very good placement for the city to be providing that support at that time. And then, so the city is parsing out resources along the year to us, basically as taxes get collected and they're remitting increments to us. State aid is more backloaded, right, towards the end of the fiscal year. So that's why that aid payment in January, if we can make it to January, if you look at the schedule, then we're in good shape.
Yeah, so we tell our folk, don't spend a lot of money in January. Yeah.
Well,
all right.
yeah, I mean, really, it's just this low point is like a week or two, the second, third week in January. And of course, these numbers fluctuate, by the way. These are, there's a huge sheet and things, there's estimates and there's actual versus what you estimated. So it'll fluctuate, but, and we're tracking that, well, we track it weekly. So, but if that number gets lower, then yeah, we're having to hold payments for payables, basically. Obviously, we be paying our employees.
All right.
But yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so revenue summary is pages 7 and 8 in that document. And this is the first time, obviously it's the first time I'm presenting to you. So I'm looking at these new myself. And what we have is lists out the revenue sources for the budget. General fund for the year is $836 million, and it gives all the detail of all the various sources. What we need to do at some point as we get deeper into the year is actually do projections, which are not on here. Because I think projecting is hard to do. People tend not want to do it because, if you don't project accurately, then people say, why didn't you project accurately? But having said that, you know, you need to do that. And if you have, you need to learn from your projections. So like if you project something and then you find out we're off by a lot, then you analyze why were we off and how can we improve it next time. If you're not doing the projecting, if you're not projecting, you can't improve on it. So, so I'm going to be pushing to add some information here. But what we do on this schedule is we do add grants that come in, and that's on page 8. You'll see cumulative to date, so July and August, we have $2.3 million of additional grants that we've received. The August ones of $916,000 are actually detailed in the first page of the summary letter. And you can see basically kind of categories of where that comes from. The pages 9 through 12 are appropriations by function. And you'll notice on pages 9 and 10 in the expense column, which is the second from the right, there are some negative numbers. And so that stuck out to me because you normally don't have negative expense. And so what I found out is there's a quirk to how we do our accounting here. We close the year June 30th, and we do what's called accruals, which is basically if a bill comes in July but it related to June or before, you put it in that bucket last fiscal year. So that's called an accrual, and it sits out there. And then when you come into the new fiscal year, a little convoluted, but you basically kind of reverse it out because you're gonna pay for it, and then it nets out to zero. The expense went last year, but the cash isn't going to go out until this year. Well, so what happened is we reversed accruals in the system, but where there's negative, and those are net numbers, that's net of activity of expenses against this accrual. What it means is we haven't paid that bill yet. So
we haven't paid $734 million in bills?
No.
Okay.
Like on page 9, there's a negative number of $1 million. So
Okay.
what it means is there's a large bill out there in that category that hadn't been paid by the end of August.
Okay.
Right? So what happens is that as we obviously get into September, October, all those bills are going to have flushed through and been paid, and everything will net out. But so this timing of this beginning, so that's something I need to basically look at. We probably shouldn't have reversed out the accruals until what we should be doing is matching up the accruals with when we pay the expense. So I think what we did is we did en masse, reversed all our accruals. Let's say there's 100 different bills, and you said, okay, we're accounting for them all, but maybe we only paid 75 of them by the end of August. So we needed to be more precise to make this more accurate. So, anyways, so that'll clear out, but it is something a little different that we need to definitely clean up going forward in future years. Next is the federal stimulus funds, pages 13, 14. And this is recapping. Page 13 is the CRISA funds. Page 14 is ARPA. And you can see that it'll have the budget. So in the case of CRISA, it's $87 million. And you can see what's been committed, what's been expended, what's been paid out, and what's left. What I want to do is I also want to add to this schedule to add, and what do we project out? So we have expenses that we've we're going to be incurring, like staff and everything, and project that out to come into this schedule to make it more future-looking. Because what it is right now is it's kind of looking at the past and kind of say, okay, this is where we were at August 31st. I think more relevant to the board is where we're going. Right?
Sure.
So that applies to page 13 and 14 as well. So we'll look to make an improvement of that schedule going forward. And then on to page 3 of the summary memo, we have a section, pages 15 through 23 is a summary in small print of journal entries that have occurred. These are all the journal entries. I will note that if the total for general fund, which is on page 22, you'll see that it's 900, there's a positive 916,652, and that relates back to the new grants. Normally when you do journal entries, they balance each other out. You take money from somewhere and put it somewhere else, it nets out. But going back to those grants, those additional grants, those are recorded into the system, and that's why you see that positive number there. Pages 24, 28, capital projects. So capital projects, we've got a kind of a status report of all the projects. It gives, what the budget was, what's been encumbered, what's been expended, how much is left to be spent. Lists out all the projects, and this in the summary memo has a summary of the categories. Bond is debt financed projects. Cash capital is local funds that we're using to do capital projects. As you go into pages 29 and 33, it actually summarizes activity for various projects, and what we've extracted in the summary memo is some of those larger expenditures or changes that occurred in August, and you can see those there as well for various projects. And then pages 34, 39 is a listing of all our student activity funds. And those funds are held in trust by the district on behalf of all the various groups, and you can see the detail there by school, by activity, or various clubs and organizations. And you can see, you get into page 37, you can see there's a lot of different clubs and accounts happening at the School of the Arts.
And so, Mr. Farr, you'll know that that the student activity funds is a thorn in previous accountants' sides, because these accounts never really add up in the sense that, you have volunteers who are managing this or students that are managing this, and where the board has really, wanted to make sure that, these numbers do balance. That's always been, a thorn that it's difficult to, it's been challenging to get a lot of these schools to reconcile their funding. So. Right.
Well, so these are people who have accounts. Imagine there's people who don't have accounts, but the money is like in a shoebox, right. Or yeah. So I think that's always been a problem, but it's something to emphasize because the liability is there for the individuals, for the school district. If an organization is doing something that results in some unfortunate situation, there's legal liability associated with that. So part of our need as a district is not to tell people how to spend their money, but to account for it, that we know, okay, this is how much came in, this is, got paid out for whatever. So it's $109,000, but as you point out, it's like a thorn. I'm sure it keeps on sticking you periodically where it becomes a problem. So that's a challenge, and I think we always need to continue to try to figure out how to get better compliance And I don't know enough about operationally, you know, if people resist because like the service, it's too complex, or they don't want us to know what they're doing, or, you know, stuff like that. So, but that's not unique to this school district, I can tell you that. That's everywhere. So,
Well, that's good to know.
yeah. The last item is the school service fund, which a month ago, Vern Connors stood up here and said, "Oh, I'm going to have you." We don't have it. I have to get. I've got some meetings scheduled with food service to get a better understanding of their operation. I conceptually know because I've overseen food service in other school districts. There's a delay that when you serve food and you get counts, those counts then get put into basically federal requests for reimbursement forms, and that happens obviously after the fact, right? You're serving the kids, and then you get all the data recorded, and you know, request for reimbursement. So there's a delay factor there, and the question is, can we be, could we or should we just be estimating? We should be able to estimate pretty accurately, you know, obviously a few $1,000s here or there, but you know, we know how many, we get to the end of a month, or actually every day, but we get to the end of the month, we know how many meals we serve, how many breakfasts, how many lunches, what was the aid reimbursement. You can do a pretty quick calculation. All the paperwork that has to be filed can happen later. It doesn't have to be totally, at least for my purpose, hopefully, and hopefully the board's in agreement with that, that I'm not looking for perfection down to the penny or the dollar. I'm looking for conceptually, how are we doing, how many, specifically beyond the dollars, how many meals are we serving versus what we thought? How many did we serve last year? So that kind of that graph we had for cash flow, you know, I want to come back with some graphs on meals. How many did we serve that same week last year versus this year? Are we serving more or serving fewer? What's our participation rate, right? So those are things that I think are critical to know and for the board to be aware of. So we'll work on that as well.
Yeah, so in light of just staying on the food service piece, with the fact that the USDA has revoked the all students being able to participate in the food program, you know, the impact that that's going to have on our budget. I was at the Monroe County School Board Association Labor Committee meeting yesterday, and you had representatives, superintendents, and business people from Hilton, Pittsford, I think it was just Hilton and Pittsford, that talked about their food program and how there are supply chain issues, there are hiring issues, and the fact that they mentioned the director from the food service program for Hilton mentioned that for one of their machines that they use for their food, they're missing a chip. They can't find a chip, you know, and so they're having to find creative ways in order to provide the food program. And with regard to the supply chain issues, they're now having to go and look at, you know, some of the local companies out there. For example, they were looking for pasta, and they had to go to a local company in order to get the pasta. So I sent my colleagues an email with regard to the food program, because there are other issues, higher issues, what I'm just talking about, that may impact, and not only in our food service program, but it may impact in other areas of our expenditures and our budget, and how our colleagues have to be aware that we're going to be probably going to be spending more for the same products. Or they're, like in my case personally, I've been waiting for furniture for my office for like 8 months since I got here. So, you know, there's a supply chain issue, you know. And for a laptop or a computer, I've been waiting. So, Commissioner Powell?
I apologize, I have to correct you though, Madam Chair and Madam President. The thing that's going away is the community, is the COVID
Universal.
aid. Whereas because we are a community eligibility district, we will continue to be able to serve 100% free lunch, because that part didn't go away. It was just the COVID, and that's what affected our suburban neighbors, because they were, you know, they were benefiting hugely from the COVID relief, but we were already getting 100% aid on our lunches, so under the community eligibility program, and that hasn't gone away.
Right, that's still in place. I've got a meeting with the food service director and to kind of go over any changes to what you're talking about beyond just changes in the federal funding, and we are a community eligibility program, so we're 100% free and reduced. But the challenges that you mentioned as far as sourcing of food, labor, is going to be a continuing challenge for us. So, the food can only be provided to the students if we have it and we can serve it, right? So, I'm looking to work with food service to bring, do a kind of a summary up to date of just the food service program for the board at a future meeting, to bring everybody kind of up to date of what, not just the finances, but the challenges operationally and what we're doing to respond to that. So.
Yeah, we would be excited, if you don't mind, President, to hear more about that, because when we consider, although we're 100% funded, there's a lot of limitations to what that looks like in the quality of food and the distribution of the food. So we don't want to lose. I hear that things are going in a great direction at this point, and that's because of additional funds that are supplementing that.
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, just example, I was at school last night and talking to the principal, and there's a desire for at least certain grade levels at that school to do breakfast in the classroom, but the food service hasn't been able to roll it out at that particular school. Now, I've been at other schools where it exists or it just started this school year, but there's kind of a capacity issue because it becomes not just the food, it becomes a staffing issue, right? Because you got to have people queued up to, as the students come in, to get them their whatever represents a breakfast. So those are, I think those are things to inform the board, inform the public, but more importantly is to assess where we're at, but more importantly, and what we're doing about it, right? How, because like you're saying, now, if you don't have a desk, I don't know what we're going to do about it.
Right.
Yeah.
But well, I got one, but
okay.
It doesn't fit me. So.
Okay. But I think for food service, it's and of course that replicates over transportation, right, or even classrooms, right? I mean the challenges that we face replicate. But I do want to bring the food service aspect in a more detailed, more comprehensive kind of presentation with some graphs and charts to let everybody know kind of where we're at and where we're going.
Yeah, and how the board can support it. Let me just offer Commissioner Malloy or Commissioner Patterson, who's on Zoom. Do you have any questions for Mr. Farr?
None at this time. Thank you for your presentation.
Commissioner Patterson did leave the meeting. He's now on the road, so he's not able.
Oh, okay.
He left the meeting.
Right. Okay. So can I get a motion?
So moved.
Oh,
So moved.
oh, okay. Let me see what the motion is for. To approve the district's unaudited September 2022 financial report and the 2021-22 fourth quarter student activity report. And it's moved by Commissioner Powell. Is there a second?
Second. Seconded
by Commissioner Simmons. Any comments or questions regarding the report?
Just to correct, the packet is provided in the month of September. The report is for August of 2022.
Okay.
It's the
so
August
you guys
financial
got
report
September
and
on here.
Yes, because it's a September packet, but
All right.
for August.
All right. Okay. So, can you accept that correction, Commissioner Powell?
Yes, ma'am.
August. All right. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Mr. Farr. Did a great job for your first time. And then the next item on the agenda is the HR report, and I will read that. The Human Resource Committee met as a committee of the whole on Tuesday, September 20th, 2022, after a one-year hiatus. During that meeting, the board reviewed and accepted the minutes from the September 7th, 2021 HR Committee of the Whole. The committee voted to accept a new statement of purpose. The HR committee, and when I say HR, I mean human resources, has committed to focusing on the review of vacancy and hiring reports, diversity pipeline initiatives, HR practices and procedures, personnel policies, and district staff recruitment and retention efforts. Chief of Human Capital, Chief Miller, provided a monthly vacancy report update, and also presented on the district's staff and recruitment. The November Human Resource Committee meeting will feature a more fine-tuned monthly vacancy and staffing report based on feedback provided in the September meeting. Discussions that month would also include the topic of professional development, usage of relief fund dollars, as well as more expansive discussion on retention and strategies. And the next in-person HR committee meeting is scheduled for November 15th, 2022. Thank you. And Dr. Jallo, if you're on, I did not ask you if you had any questions. Do you have any questions about anything that we've discussed so far?
No, thank you, not at this time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Powell, the Policy Committee report.
Yes, ma'am. The Policy Committee last met on Tuesday, September 6th. My written report is on board docs, and it has now gone into a page and a half. I'm not going to read it for everyone, but I will summarize by saying we've continued to do good work. We have 10 policies that will be voted on tonight. We have another 10 that will be in their second readings when we get to old business. And we have 6 that we'll be discussing under new business, their first readings that have just left the Policy Committee this September 6th. Of those 6, I will be asking that we refer one of the 6 back to Policy Committee. We just want to double check some language on one of them, and I'll discuss that when we get to new business. The next Policy Committee meeting is, of the whole, is October 4th at 5:30 p.m. That concludes my report.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Powell. And I will present the President's report. I have about 3 single-line pages, so I'm not going to, 4 actually. So I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to, just know I've been working. That's all I got to say. Just know I've been working. But I will just highlight a few things. One is that I just want to, again, thank the superintendent and the administration for just ensuring that we had a great opening for the start of the school year. It went off with, I don't know if there were any glitches, there may have been, but because, you know, many of us did not get any calls or anything, we believe that it went off without very many glitches. So again, just want to thank food service staff, school safety, all the staff in the classrooms, our teachers, our teacher assistants, our paras, our secretaries, our principals, our assistant principals, counselors, you know, all the people who have helped to make this a phenomenal school year. Just really excited and very proud of the work that the Rochester City School District has been doing. Also, the board, and some of us in groups, were invited to the orientations of our SSOs and our food service staff, and we're just very proud to be a part of that. In the SSO conversation, there were some tense conversations, but I think that they were very respectful, and I'm looking forward to future meetings so that, because it's very important that we ensure that our staff, our SSOs, particularly because we no longer have SROs, that we are ensuring that they are safe, that we're providing them what they need in order to do the work, particularly since we don't have SROs in our buildings any longer. And so I'm looking forward to further conversation around that and other staff as well. I'm also the Vice President, myself, Dr. Jallo, Commissioner James, Commissioner Patterson attended the first leadership meeting yesterday. the Youth and Justice Program. And one of the poignant points that came out of that meeting was the story of the principal there, Michael Allen, and where he talked about that he had gone to school here in this district, and that he was a smart student, but on some levels he, was kind of mischievous. And they misplaced him. Whereas he wanted to be an engineer, when he applied to be an engineer, he did not have sufficient math courses in order to do that. He didn't, and so he was not able to become an engineer. But that just speaks to that we have to listen to and look at deeply at our students and what they are capable of, even if they may be mischievous, that we have to take the time to really find out what their interests are. We didn't do that in the case of Mr. Allen, Principal Allen. He did well. We've got him in our district to help other students, but he was misplaced, and it was a very powerful story of what what we did not do for Principal Allen. So thank you, Mr. Allen, for that story. And I'm just going to go through kind of quickly with the rest of this. I attended the Code of Conduct, first one. Also, just want to recognize that we will have a new board clerk. Her name is Rahima Wynn, and just want to welcome her. She's right there next to our former board clerk, but want to welcome her. She is not new to the district, and we're glad to know that the great work and the excellent work will continue in our board office. And I just want to lastly say, as a board, I just want to make sure that we are continuing to work together, that we're able to work together collaboratively, and we've got a lot of work that we've got to do. And my concern is if we don't focus in on our children and our students, that the kinds of issues that come up on this board, it may be a deterrent for candidates who may want to come and work in this district, but that they look at us as a board and that we're not focusing on the work, but we're focusing on something else. So I'm asking this board that we stop with the distractions and we get to the work. And so that concludes my report. And so the next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report. I'm going to ask Interim Superintendent Peluso for his report.
Thank you, President Elliott. Good evening to you, commissioners, all families, staff that are watching us and joining us on YouTube or Facebook Live. I want to welcome everyone back for the start of another exciting school year. The promise of a fresh school year is a feeling you never forget, and it certainly has taken on a new significance for me as my first as interim superintendent. I had the joy of starting my day on Wednesday, September 7th, visiting with students and staff at Roberto Clemente, school number 8, and the Monroe campus. Throughout the first few weeks, I've visited many of our other schools, and I hope you'll join me in celebrating the enthusiasm I felt on the first day all year long as we celebrate and initiate what we're saying as One RCSD, and we're kind of creating a hashtag that we're hoping that everyone will use throughout the year. This month, we launched a new format to communicate with our families using a newsletter that is called S'more. And this allows us to engage with families in more than 100 languages. Our goal is to provide equitable and timely communications to all of our parents and caregivers, so we're also sharing this information with our families on social media. It is a great tool, and our communication department has done some amazing things, so please check it out. Transportation for athletes. Look at this picture. This makes me smile. Football season, fall, pumpkin, food. The transportation department is continuing to do amazing work. The team worked with the athletic department to create a plan to cover all sports shuttles and ensure our student athletes can get to practice at the various locations throughout the city. This was not an easy task, and they accomplished this by utilizing all of our available resources. The capacity to offer sports shuttles can be compromised if there are adjustments to staffing, routing, or the need for increased busing. I'm hoping that we can continue to increase the number of student athletes that are participating at each school so that we could field teams and will not have to rely on so heavily on transporting them from school to school. I'm happy to tell you about a very fantastic opportunity for our students to explore the benefits of going to college. I'm excited to announce we now have the ability to take 30 to 40 students from each of our high schools on HBCU tours outside of New York State, all expense paid. There's up to $45,000 available via grant funding for each high school in the district, and trips will take place during February and April break. There are certainly many benefits to attending an HBCU, including the fact that students of color that attend these schools report feeling more at home and perform better in school where they feel supported and safe. Very exciting opportunity. We're actively providing opportunities for students in grades 9 through 12 across the district to take the PSAT and SAT exams. These exams will be provided at all of our high schools during the school day on Wednesday, October 12th. Both exams are important steps for any student thinking about college. They give colleges a snapshot of student skills and knowledge and also provide access to scholarships and national merit awards that can be used to help build a college enrollment portfolio. So Wednesday, October 12th. Which leads us to an event that was today that we hosted a press conference here at Central Office to announce dates for our upcoming FAFSA Fest, and that's a free application for federal student aid. At these events, students and families will learn about financial aid that is available for college. If anyone has gone through a FAFSA form, they're complicated, they're complex. I remember sitting down with my mother going through them and pulling out our hair, not sure what was needed and what we needed to do. So while the financial aid process can be difficult, this event puts students in touch with counselors who can help navigate the application for federal student aid. Counselors are available in person to assist students and families with the online application. They can answer financial aid questions and provide useful information on understanding college costs. I hope everyone will take advantage of these great opportunities coming up in October, November, and December. Popular subject today. One I like to talk about, school lunches. There we go. So I want to give the food service team a shout out for the success with food choices this school year. Yes, give them a round of applause. We've received feedback from our staff that students are very happy with the meals that they've been receiving, including screams of joy and excitement from students at school number 5. This slide includes some of the positive comments we have been receiving from staff, so thank you again to the food service, Mike and his team, for really stepping up the game in food lunches. So really exciting and really happy to see.
I talked to, just a point right here. I remember we talked to the food service staff, and I told them about when I was going to school in the segregated South, we had Miss Turner's biscuits. So I'm hoping that we can get Miss Turner's recipe and give them some biscuits.
We could do Peluso's pasta and meatballs. We're good. Figure a few things out. We're very excited to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month here in Rochester City School District with the runs from Thursday, September 15th until Sunday, October 15th. This year's theme is Unidos, inclusivity for a stronger nation. We hope everyone will join us next month for a celebration with the Board of Education on Thursday, October 27th at 5 p.m. I'm excited that they're using the theme United, and it is kind of in direct alignment to our one RCSD this year. The district is honored to have representation on the panel that will explore graduation measures on a statewide level. Tricia Gonzalez-Johnson is a social studies teacher on assignment in the district, and the New York State Education Department has named Tricia to its graduation measure Blue Ribbon Commission. Tricia is one of 64 people statewide who represent a diverse cross-section of stakeholders, including students, parents, educators, and professionals from business and higher education. She will explore what a state diploma should signify to ensure educational excellence and equity for every student in New York. Congratulations to Tricia on this honor. So that is my superintendent report for September. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Fu. So, and some someone texted me, I may have forgotten to give a shout. I may have been remiss and didn't give a shout out to our busing staff. And I do not want to miss those who transport our students to and from school, and, you know, kind of stress that they have on the bus. So I certainly want to provide them with a shout out. So thank you for all the work that you're doing in taking our children back and forth to school. And so I'll open it up for questions for Dr. Peluso. Commissioner Simmons?
Yes, thank you, President Elliott. I just really wanted to emphasize maybe a couple of questions, but as far as the FAFSA Fest, how imperative that is, and so for anyone in the listening audience, the participation of parents is essential for the success of the FAFSA Fest. Just the form, Social Security, and the documentation that students need to be able to complete that form. So having worked in those spaces previously, has been a barrier. So just parents get the documents lined up and get ready, and I'm really excited that this is kicking off. I'm also excited to hear about the HBCU tours. I mean, there's something about stepping foot on a historically Black college campus and the identity and the pride that a student feels, and I've been able to witness that firsthand. So I did have a couple of questions around that, pertaining to maybe, is there criteria for the students that are able to participate? And if so, can you share a little bit about that? And also, what was my other question? Have you identified some of the schools that they may be going to? And how is this being promoted among the parents?
So yeah, I could definitely send out the criteria, and the schools are working collaboratively to kind of decide when they're going and what schools they're going to go to, and they're going to be inclusive of student voice, obviously, in terms of making some of those decisions.
I'm excited to hear about that. And then finally, the sports. We touched on this a little earlier this evening, so and I think you offered up a really good suggestion. I'd like to have additional conversation, maybe at the ESA meeting if that's appropriate, around transportation and sports, because we do recognize the desire to increase student participation. Students want to be able to identify, and we have a lot of schools that are combining for various reasons, and just that sense of school pride is just so essential to the identity of sportsmanship. And we know that sports and how they support academic and learning is just so important. Some of the games we know with the transportation issues having to do the rerouting have resulted in games starting as late as 8 and getting out at 10. We know students have to get into school the next day. And our SSOs, I think, are manning some of those games, and so they're staying out later. And I just want to know at some point what those plans will be to remedy that, and if they're going to be expected to stay. Is there pay increase that goes along with that stay? But yeah, there's just a lot going on there.
Absolutely, yes. There is costs associated with coverage outside of the school day and hours, and they are compensated. I do believe it's a conversation we need to have. One of our obstacles that we're faced with, that some of our suburban counterparts are not faced with, right? They practice at their school, at their facility. They don't need transportation. When we're transporting 450 athletes all across the city, right? There is a lack, there's no sense of school connectedness, right? They don't know who they're playing for, right, and who they're uniting with. That is something that I would love to see more of. We need to increase our opportunities, for our kids, get our kids back on the fields and engage more, increase our youth offerings as well, so that they come to us, and then also really taking a look at our feeder patterns, right? So you could establish a pattern of athletes to the schools, right?
Awesome, thank you so much. I heard Cameron Johnson is doing some dynamic work, so I'll probably invite her to the SA committee. Thank you.
Commissioner Malloy?
Thank you. Dr. Peluso, thank you so much for your presentation. Just in regards to the sports on slide 4, thank you so much to the transportation department and just to your team and to the athletic department as well for the work that they've been doing to try to figure out the sports shuttle situation. I know that having united teams where we are drawing students from different schools to field enough players for a particular sport. I'm thinking like girls soccer, as well as our girls swim team and our boys swim team for that matter. as well as some of our soccer teams that have combined from various schools. I know that those teams at least have really great senses of community, and it's been really difficult for a lot of kids to get to their practices from their home schools. And so I'm really glad that the transportation department is looking at this. I know that there are still a few issues that parents have brought to my attention this week, but I'm hoping those can get sorted out. But I wanted to say kudos to you and your team for working so diligently on this and responding to the concerns that that people had. Also wanted to quickly bring just a concern publicly to the table. Want to make sure that in anything that we do that we're ensuring equity in access for male versus female sports. I know that there have been some concerns brought that perhaps there's not enough turf time for some of our female athletes for particular sports. And they've expressed concerns that perhaps boys are getting more turf time than they are. And so if we could look into that, I know those are just some of the parents have brought those concerns to me as well as some of our coaches. But kudos as well to all of the coaches out there who are working to help inspire our kids. We know sports are so critical for student success. And so it's great to see so many positive interactions with our student athletes and the successes that they have. We also need a girls lacrosse team. Evidently, we have enough girls to field a united team. So if someone can look into that, we've had a number of parents who have kids who play travel lacrosse. It's a huge sport here in upstate Western New York. This is where it's from. But we have quite a few girls who really wanted to field a team this year and were unable to. So I promised them that I would bring that up at our business meeting. So thank you for all you do, and just hope that we can ensure equity of access for all of our students. Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner Adams, you have a question? And I see Commissioner LeBron has her hand up, so.
So since we brought up the subject of sports, first I'd like to say there's a lot of girls sports going on. One of the two most exciting games I've seen this year. One was the Bills versus Kansas City. And the second was the girls' volleyball team over there at East. The other day, it was so hyped. It was great participation. But I also want to say that I'm glad that we have it, at least have it on the table. We're trying to come to in the issue about transportation. We have not resolved that yet. We're working on it, but it's good to know that we are working on it. Just as recently as I go to a lot of games. Just as recently as last night, I seen somebody giving a bunch of people a ride. And just doing what, and with the sports, I have to give one shout out to Pathways and to the SSOs, because they've been holding us down at the stadium, keeping the kids from just doing what just being kids sometimes is uncomfortable for folks. And they've been really doing an amazing job at these games, man. And I just have to say thank you to them. All right.
So I've got a question about sports, but Commissioner Vice President LeBron, I'll extend the floor to you.
Thank you, President Elliott. It also has to do, and I don't know if we have to actually vote to motion because there's two commissioners. I'll just throw that out there. So my comments are also related to sports. I think a number of commissioners have been reached out to by different parents from different teams and so forth around the transportation issue. But also, although I know that the administration is working on it, there is some delays for certain students. And, you know, we talk about equity. I would much rather that a team of 28 has the priority over transportation over 8 students. And I have to say that because I don't know how things are being scheduled or stacked, but to have kids waiting, you know, while the buses are being staggered, and I get that there's a limited number of buses and there's a certain amount of games, but kids have to be fed too. And so I know I had this conversation with our chief of operations, and he's aware of it, and I want to put that out there on record in case other parents are listening and also having the same concern that other parents have already expressed, that, you know, so for some teams they're waiting for a very long extended period of time to be picked up. And while they're waiting to be picked up, there's no access to a snack or food. And I know that has come up quite a bit this week. So I just wanted to put that out there and just let parents know, like, if this is a concern for you, other parents have brought it forth, the administration's aware, and that they're working on it. And that we are all aware that this is happening, and not necessarily that we believe everything's been resolved when it comes to transportation and sports. It has not. But I think it's going to be an ongoing conversation. And then I have to say this too, and I've said this before, we should be surveying parents if they have vehicles and the ability to transport. And while I 100% understand that not every parent has the ability to transport because they may not have access to transportation or a vehicle, that is not the case for every parent. And if parents can transport, we should be asking them if they can and if they're willing to transport. Not make it a requirement because, I don't know everybody's work schedule and vice versa, but, if you have the flexibility and the luxury to transport, then we should be surveying that as well. Thank you.
So one of the things that I noticed, I saw a picture of the swim team. And I think that I saw one maybe brown girl on the swim team. And so I'm going to ask that we reach out to people, girls of color, who can participate on the swim team. And in fact, it has been primarily an all-white team for quite a while. Who was the former athletic director? Carlos. So I had heard that. So I'm asking that we also look at recruiting girls of color to participate on the swim team. There are now, and I don't know the names of these athletes black women who have won some awards, medals for swimming. And so I'm going to ask that we reach out to girls of color to participate on that as well. So, all right. So the next item on the agenda is, I'm sorry?
Commissioner Malloy raised
her
hand.
I didn't see your hand. Commissioner Malloy?
Thank you. Yeah, two of my daughters are on the United Swim Team, and there is active recruitment. I think there are a lot of barriers to access, as we know, in the city. One would be just feeder programs. There's the Rochester Rapids program that works out of our rec centers, and we do try to recruit. I think one of the best ways that we can recruit for our swim program and to get more representation on that swim team would be to ensure that we're providing swim access to all of our students. There shouldn't be a single student in our district that leaves here without knowing how to swim. And so there are a lot of barriers and reasons why we don't see more participation, but that is something that we're actively doing. We're actively recruiting as a team. And it should be noted that our swim team right now is 4-0, and we have some girls who have already qualified as 7th graders for sectionals. So kudos to the entire swim team for the efforts that you are making, and to the coaches. We are lucky enough to have a master's champion for the United States who is coaching our program. And so we are talented here in RCSD in all of our sports to have some of the best coaches in the nation, and swimming is no exception. But yes, we can do more to recruit, but we have lots of feeder programs, and I think we should do more as a district to ensure that kids are getting lessons in the school day. Thanks.
Just make sure that we're recruiting girls of color. That's what I'm putting that on the table. Very strong.
President Elliott, I just have to say though, the recruitment focus, because that team has primarily been an almost all-white team for a number of years, and we have to be honest about that. So we're gonna have this conversation. It can't be that, a parent is saying, we've been recruiting. The district as a system has to figure out what that recruitment is going to look like. So I am going to request that goes back to the administration and that they let us know as a board what they're prepared to do to ensure that there are more Black and brown representatives on a team in a district that is primarily a Black and brown school district. Like, that for me is not acceptable, and we shouldn't accept that the team, and it's not on the team, let me be real clear, it's not on coaches to go out and recruit. This is a systemic issue in this district, and the administration needs to let the board know how they are going to systemically address this issue.
Thank you, Vice
Thank you.
President. Thank you. So before I go to Dr. Nelms and his report, I just want to give a shout out. Dr. Nelms is a celebrity in Rochester and in Buffalo and all these other places, you know, and so he has been honored by the FBI and was awarded the FBI Leadership Award for Community Impact, and also the Chamber of Commerce Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Award. And just want to give a shout out to Dr. Nelms for one of those. Oftentimes Dr. Nelms just does the work. We know that we have a great school and a great leader over at East High School, and with the work that he's done over there, so we're very proud of that work, and we just appreciate your commitment to the students in the city of Rochester, so congratulations.
Thanks, President Elliott. All right, so my presentation is a celebration as well, and I know Carmen Puso has done a great job of setting this up for me. And I want to say the food has been incredible. We had the baked potato day, and the kids were eating them. It was amazing. The kids were eating them. And it's funny, I think there is a group of individuals who are not happy with the lunches, and that's the area McDonald's and local restaurants that were making a lot of money over the last few years from kids trying to Grubhub stuff to the school because the food wasn't tasty. So we might have some people upset in the economy within the community, but the food itself is being consumed. You can walk the cafeteria and see empty trays. So again, thank you, and you're absolutely right, Carmen. So my presentation is brief as well. I just want to say I think this has been the best start to the school year we've had in a long time. I defining best as the most planned for. We haven't had any interactions that we didn't plan for. So there are things that we learned through COVID that we have definitely modified and adjusted for the opening of school, being clear about expectations, making sure that our staff members understand what resources are in the building. That year and a half away from school, tested all of our systems, and I thank the teachers and administrators and support staff for coming together over this summer and really having a comprehensive plan. I had a teacher come say to me recently, I'm just waiting for the honeymoon to be over. And I said, I'm gonna change that and say, maybe it's not the honeymoon because we planned for it. And so I don't want people to have or create energy that says this is happening because we're in a honeymoon period, although it feels that way. People have to acknowledge the work they put into it. And I saw leaders across this entire district and teachers across this entire district planning all summer long for the opening of school to at least have a response when things happen. And so to all the educators throughout the entire community, I thank you, and I thank you for giving our students and our parents a better start to the school year, and one that they are able to thrive. And so that goes out to everyone. And this is just two messages that Principal Wingo and Blocker sent out to staff on the first day, just thanking them and reminding them to stay focused. And we're gonna have some days, we're gonna have some events, we always do, but if we can focus on our strategies and our structures for addressing them, we'll be much better off and be able to move forward. Our next slide this is just some of the things that we've done intentionally within the school, and one of the critical conversations that we're having is to ensure that we don't start school to be this place of compliance, meaning that students are coming in and being told no, 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 no constantly, or being controlled about what they can or cannot do. It's critically important to have structures and systems, but also to have students have voice and how to modify those along the way. However, there are some non-negotiables, and some of those are listed. We knew that through COVID, there was an increase in drug use in the community, and some of that drug use came into the school. So how do we support students who may have acquired some bad habits over the last couple years? How do we help them get to a healthy place without criminalizing them or punishing them, but making sure they're clear about the process? We reinstituted the cell phone policy. It's going extremely well. And I know other districts throughout the county are looking into similar policies. We are talking about food deliveries. That's on that list. We stopped all Grubhub and people going off campus to get food because it's distracting. and at times it can be dangerous when you have kids released out into the community. We weren't allowing it last year, kids were just doing it. so we would like be 10 Grubhub bags at the front door, you know, and kids down there waiting, it became an issue. And then making sure that kids understand and respect their own spaces like bathrooms and et cetera. So I think, like all of our schools, that we had some time to implement many of the lessons that we learned through COVID and to collaborate and coordinate throughout the day. I will also say it's been great, thinking of athletics, to see the coaches and athletic directors share strategies to prevent fights at games and to really encourage a positive game experience. And we're seeing that throughout RCSD. Many of the schools are having successful events and the crowds are excited. So I just want to remind us all that yes, we have standards, and yes, we have structure, but we have to make sure we have student voice included in those decisions so we can get their feedback and make sure that our decisions are relevant to them. Next slide. To that end, we are reactivating the Lighthouse Scholars program. This is led by 2 of our assistant principals. And it's really an opportunity to give students space and grace to be able to determine how we might adjust. One of the inputs we got over the summer from our student-led panel was to bring speakers in who were more relevant. And we partnered with the Urban League of Rochester this past week, and we had 3 individuals come in. A gentleman from LA, last name Akila Sherrills. He was responsible for helping to create a truce between the Bloods and Crips back in the day. He was here to talk about advocacy as a gang member who led this truce and how important it is for them to find their voice and to be disruptive within their own communities in a positive way. We had Tamika Mallory, who many of you probably know. She was really outspoken during the George Floyd protest. She's the one who most famously said, "I don't care if the stores burn, because they should be out here marching with us." She was here and she spoke to the students in the afternoon as well. And then we had a local artist, Benny the Butcher, who's a top 10 rapper right now, to the kids. And he's from Buffalo originally. He made the trip up to speak to our students about gun violence. And he himself was a victim of a robbery in November of 2020, where he was shot and still has some physical limitations because of that. And so the kids got to hear it from an advocate, from someone who's closer to their age, who led protests, and then someone who they emulate through music. And I think it was just incredible to honor the kids' voices by bringing those individuals and partner with local entities. Dr. Chanel Hawkins in the Urban League of Rochester was very, very supportive in partnering that way. We did invite a couple RCSD students, but busing made it a little difficult for them to come. I want to say that too. This is incredible. I can't wait for the board to come over and see this. One of our 6 CTE courses, or Career Technical Education courses, is our Pathway in Medical Careers. This year, we bought and added some technology using the ARP funds. It's an enematage table. So essentially that skeleton that you see is would be like a table that you would, it can lay flat or stand up, and you can create the same effect of having a dissection of a human body. So the skin comes off, and then the bones, and then you see the circular system, and you see the heart and pumping. And you can see it's amazing. They have babies, they have eyes. These are people who actually donated their body to science, and they digitally sliced the body up and then created them within this system. And so it's a way for our students to have hands-on approaches. We had an ophthalmologist, Dr. Cowardin, recently, who specializes in cataract and glaucoma surgery. She's going to be leading the new medical center downtown. She came in and was showing kids how the complexity of the eye system, and how you can come in and kind of slice it up in different ways. So as we get to know the technology and the teachers getting training in that, we're going to be bringing more physicians in. And for students in our medical careers program, they'll be able to have a direct connection to the human body in ways that you haven't seen. This type of equipment is in some suburban schools and in very few hospitals. It's state of the art, and through some grants we were able to purchase that. So I thank Jody Cookin for taking on the challenge of making that be relevant for students. Speaking of security, I mean, anyone who knows and understands how dedicated our security staff are, you would appreciate this. Sisto Bermudez has been at East for a few years, and he received the district's Safety Officer of the Year award And he is at everything. I mean, he organizes, morning arrival to dismissal, to our games, to the things that happen on the weekend. And he's just ever present. And I can't think of a more deserving individual to receive this award on behalf of the entire district. And if you get a chance to be at a game and you see Sisto, I would hope that you could congratulate him. We put his poster all over the school and on Facebook, and the kids have been high-fiving him for days. And
So we can just give him a round of applause.
give him a round of applause, absolutely. And at times, I think these folks feel undervalued and underappreciated, to Commissioner Simmons' point. And they just do the work. And they're not the highest paid employees, but they have a lot of credibility in the community. Many of them have second jobs, but they are the most committed of staff members that we probably have, because they can take the kid from their worst moment in the day and get them through so they can continue. They're constantly de-escalating issues within the school. And for many of them, like Sisto, they become big brothers. He's also a volleyball coach at our school for JV. So many of these individuals have multiple roles in the school that all deal with connecting with students in authentic ways. So I just want to thank Bermudez for his hard work and the entire staff throughout the entire RCSD and at East. Homecoming week this week was great. This is probably a slide that's now a week old, but it's really cool. And I was talking to some principals across the district at a different event, social event, and Spirit Week is like it was probably for us in high school, where the kids dress up. My favorite day of the week is anything but a book bag week, which is on a Tuesday. So kids can bring anything in to carry their books. We got shopping carts. We had picnic baskets. We had all type of things that kids brought in. Some kid took a tire and made let the wheel roll and had his stuff inside the tire. It just was, the kids are crazy creative right now. And it's something that, again, getting kids back to normal and celebrating them so we don't feel like school is this prison-like system. And Spirit Week is one of those moments where kids really lean in and celebrate themselves and their teams. In honor of Hispanic Heritage Month, we started this a couple years ago. Assistant Principal Maicanita Perez, she takes and highlights local advocates and local business persons and other professionals within the community. And this is just one of many folks being highlighted. I encourage the community to go on our website, the East website, and share the tremendous work that people in our community are doing. You can go back to last year and see additional individuals also. But there are so many people that in Rochester that I had no idea who they were, that I'm learning about, that are in every industry. So if you're looking for a lawyer or a plumber or a carpenter, there are people in this community of color who are doing amazing work, and we have to be able to share that so that people of color have a resource that may know them best from a culturally relevant standpoint. And last but not least, I try to highlight at least one department per presentation. You get two today. You have the medical careers with that cool table, but also our TLI program, our Teaching and Learning Institute. We are still committed to making sure that we create this pipeline between Rochester, MCC, and then or other colleges within the community. The U of R has leaned in, and we're working with MCC because U of R does not have an undergraduate program. So the idea is that students would go to other local colleges and then perhaps get full scholarships as a graduate student. At Warner, we have a former student, Ella French, who's now a freshman at the U of R, who is in a program that will probably pay for her master's program if she continues in the field of education. I would say, back to Carmen's earlier point around feeder patterns, we really have to make sure that we identify students in the elementary school through the school choice process with special, whatever you want to call it, with making sure we identify who they are so they can get placed in all of our CTE programs across the district. I know there have been students in the past who want to be a mechanic who are at East and could not get in or didn't get in through the lottery system. And I know there are kids at, I'm using Edison, for example, who might want to be teachers. We have to really think about and be strategic around how we place students, particularly for our CTE programs, especially those that lead to high-paying jobs within our own community. That being said, that concludes my presentation. I thank you all for listening. And are there any questions?
I'm going to start with the with Zoom. Vice President LeBron, you have any questions for Superintendent, for Dr. Nelms?
No questions right now. Thank you, President Elliott.
Commissioner Malloy.
Thank you. It's not a question, but Dr. Nelms, thank you so much for your presentation. It's great to see East doing so many wonderful things. It's more a comment about the Spirit Week, to see 80s, 90s, 2000s Spirit Day. Makes me feel really old, so we've reached that stage.
Not as old as me, and I graduated from East.
All right, thank you so much, though. That
You're
looks like a lot of
welcome,
fun for the
Commissioner Malloy.
students.
I'll start with Commissioner Powell. You have any questions for Dr.
No, thank
Nelms? All right. Commissioner Adams, any questions for Dr. Nelms?
No, I just like, in his presentation, he mentioned listening to the students, and I just wanted to applaud him for that because the student voice has always been so important. The students' voice is what caused the food to be better. It was their voicing that, and we reacted to listening to them. So I honor you for listening to the students, and with that, I'm done.
Thank you, Commissioner Adams. Commissioner Simmons?
Yes, I just wanted to applaud once again another great presentation, and I noticed each presentation at the end, great things are happening here, and I really just love that tagline. It's the best marketing, and it's actually true. It's not just, you know, great words. I'm excited. So during the presentation, I leaned over to Commissioner Adams, and I told him I need him to bring me with him so I can see the medical lab. I'm so excited about that. And then to see the panel of folks coming to Commissioner Adams' sentiments, listening to student voice and bringing relevant voices to them. It's just creating a great culture and a lot that we can learn from. Thank you.
So I have just a couple of questions. One point that you made about the honeymoon period. I don't remember when there was a honeymoon period, Dr. Nelms. So, you know, the fact that we got one, that says a lot. And I'm hoping that, you know, through our leadership, we will continue the honeymoon period throughout the year. And to I think your point, Dr. Nelms, doesn't mean that we're not going to have some issues, but that the strategies that we employ to be able to address them, that's going to, and they become teachable moments, you know, so I'm excited about that. So all things work together for good. And then just in terms of the teacher pipeline, is there any connection with HBCUs?
Yeah, we have a few students who went down to HBCUs this year. And I'm going to connect with Carmine around the HBCU tour, because there's a couple that's going to happen in the community. I know East was trying to put one together through a foundation through U of R, and the Monroe County schools are trying to create one as well. So we might want to coordinate some funding and see how to do that, how to get that more aligned so we can maximize the number of students, perhaps the places that we go. But I'll tell you, it's encouraging. I'll be honest, I text Carmine and said, I love your presentation, because it really allows me to kind of lean in and see where I might be able to lean in under this one vision and be able to coordinate more thoughtfully. So I appreciate that, and we've already been sharing information. One commissioner texted me and said, I know you gave him a lot of accolades the first one. Are you guys really collaborating, or are you just telling me you're collaborating? I said, no, we actually don't mind talking to one another. So it's but those things are helpful, and I think that's how we're gonna make this all better for all kids in the community.
And I'm hoping that we get to the point where we're not coming from a deficit model.
Absolutely.
That there's trust enough that we are looking for, you know, how do we contribute as opposed to talking from a negative space. And so thank you both for those reports. And before we get into the consideration resolutions, I also want to give a shout out to our students. And so this is the first board meeting for when school started, and just want to wish the students a successful year. I'm believing that our students are going to do very well this year. I also would ask our buildings to have our students to be a part of their own learning, as well as the parents to be a part of that learning. And I'm believing that we're going to see great results this year for our kids. We support you as this board. We love you as this board. And we want to do the best for you, our students and our families. And so have a great year. Having said that, now it's time for consideration of resolutions. Can I get a motion for the consent agenda resolutions. They are Resolution 104 through Resolution 112. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Commissioner Simmons. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Powell. Any questions or comments relating to these resolutions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
I have a quick question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Malloy, go ahead.
Yeah, Resolution 109, just had a quick question about one of the dates, because it said October 3rd. It was being changed from October 3rd to October 3rd for one of the employees that was listed. And so I'm just wondering.
October 3rd, 23, Commissioner.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. I must have misread it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments in reference to resolutions 104 through 112? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Human capital resolutions, and is it okay if I bundle these, or you want to take them all at one time? Think you're okay? You're okay?
I'm okay with the bundle.
Okay.
President Elliott,
Go ahead.
Yes?
President Elliott, the district would like to withdraw Resolution 115. We'll be editing it for
All right.
the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. I was like, where's that voice coming from? Thank you. So can I get a motion for resolutions 113 through 119 minus resolution 115?
So
Moved
moved.
by Commissioner Simmons, and I'll take that as a second, Commissioner Malloy.
Thank you.
All right. All those in favor of resolutions 113 through 119 with the withdrawal of resolution 115?
Aye.
Aye.
I will take the bundles manually because of them being done that way. At this time, it is 6-0.
All right, thank you very much. Can I get a motion for resolutions 120? These are the East EPO resolutions. Resolution 120 through resolution 124. Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Simmons and seconded by Commissioner Powell. Any questions or comments on those resolutions?
Yes.
Commissioner Malloy?
Just on number 120, I'm wondering if Dr. Nelms could maybe tell us where we can find or get access as board members and then as the public in general to the curriculum that's been put out by East thus far. I think there's a lot of really great work that we're making major investment in around curriculum, and I just want to make sure that that's accessible to the public. So where might we find that?
Yeah, so one place you can find some of the units that are focused on culturally relevant and sustaining pedagogy is a website called elevateleducator.org, and I shared that with the board in the past, but it was a long time ago, I think. And then the other curriculum materials have been made available to the district. I know Kathy Black has been talking to the directors around that. I know Shani came over and take a look at that as well when she first started. So it's not necessarily available to parents and community, but the education community within RCSD have full access to it. It's all open sourced. So we can get the links to the board, but primarily we were waiting. What we agreed to was that Kathy and her team would review it first to make sure they want it in the hands of staff, and then once they go through it and look at modifications, then it would be shared more widely. So I think we can have a conversation about that at a different time. I don't see Kathy here, so I won't speak for her where she is in that process. But yeah, the materials are open source. It's the district's property. It's not the U of R's property. Everything that the teachers have constructed is for you all, and it's available.
Just wanted to make sure that it was available to the general public at some point, or our community. Thank you.
Yep. So I would say the elevatededucatorsite.org, elevatededucator.org is a site where some of those units that are accessible, the full unit, and we pulled those out intentionally because we were getting requests from staff members all over around how do we modify or create lessons that have anti-racism and equity at the core of it and not as an ancillary or as an add-on. So we provided some of those examples as how do you get there and things for people to use.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions with regard to resolutions 120 through 124? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. The next item, resolutions, is operations and facilities. Resolutions 125 through 127. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Powell, seconded by Commissioner Adams. Any questions or comments regarding resolutions 125 through 127?
I have a question.
Commissioner Malloy?
For Resolution 126, just regarding our pools and the maintenance, I was wondering how many pools in our district, because we have quite a few, how many of those pools are, and this might be for the question log later, but how many of those pools are up and running? Want to make sure that as many of our students as possible have access to swim instruction eventually. So just wondering how many pools are currently up and running.
Good evening, Superintendent, President Elliott, Vice President LeBron. Currently, the Marshall and the Franklin campus both have pools that are not operational. Franklin, we are doing some repairs and hoping to have it ready by mid-November. And the other ones should be all up and operational as of, what do we got here, about 8:30 this evening.
All right, thank you. Is there any other questions?
Yeah, President Elliott, I'm sorry, I just
Vice
have a quick
President LeBron?
follow-up. Yeah, to that question though, just because we have pool supplies and a pool is pool ready, are there the appropriate staffing that allows the accessibility for the students? That question's not really answered. So I guess I would need to understand that piece too. If Mike, if you can answer, we're gonna have staffing, you know, that can supervise kids in water activities. I would like to know that too.
I really couldn't speak to the actual lifeguard situation and the supervision of the pools, only to the actual maintenance of those facilities. So I think that probably would be better served by the question log at this time.
I'm okay with it going into the question log, but I do think we need to have a conversation about that in the public. It's one thing to tell the public we're going to purchase supplies through a resolution today to maintain pools that we have that then students won't even have access to because we don't have the right staffing for them to be in the water. I mean, we got to be honest about these things. So I'm okay with it going into the question log, but I would like that answered in the next meeting in a public format. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President LeBron. Commissioner Simmons?
I have a question in regards to the MO. Did we get to this yet, the MOA for 127, or we're not there?
No. But you can answer.
Before you continue, President Elliott, there wasn't a motion or a second. So right now, it should be the open period for discussion, but I didn't take a motion and second.
All right, so Commissioner Powell, I thought, moved it, and
I didn't get
Commissioner, I thought Commissioner Adams seconded.
Thank you.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yeah, Commissioner Simmons has a question.
Okay.
Sorry about putting my mic on here. With the MOA for the health e-access, the telemedicine or what have you at the schools, that sounds great. I did have a question about staffing. In there, in the overview, it mentions that staff will have access to equipment in the school health offices. So I know that a lot of the telemedicine will be executed by the primary care physicians and so on. But as far as the access to equipment in the school health offices, will that be actual, I'm assuming that's actual bodies, and then I know there's a shortage, so will we have the staffing capacity figured out for that?
Right now, we are staffed to implement this program. It involves our nurses, obviously, and nurses' aides in different buildings. But we're right now, our staffing capacity, we are staffed and fully staffed at all of our schools in the nursing area. So this program can be implemented, and any technical items that they would need in order to implement the program will be in place so all the schools will be able to take advantage of it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mike, I guess I just didn't realize that, I'm sorry, Commissioner Powell. Go ahead.
Okay. I know that it's tangential to Resolution 126, but so long as we were having the conversation about availability of our pools to our students, my recollection from my own children's experience was that that if the school had a pool, that swimming instruction was part of their gym curriculum. Is that true, not true? Can anyone speak to that?
So swimming is a part of PE, absolutely, right? And I think there's pool paras and there are staffing that you need lifeguard certification as well. So, those are the things that I want to follow up with and get answers to.
And just on that, I remember back before the summer, in the spring, Councilman Gruber contacted me about training our students for lifeguards. And so we need to look at, that's, I think, a viable program for us to have for our students. So I'll just put that, in the question log, if you will, so that we can pursue that. That's another way, in my view, for us to helping support our city and also providing jobs for our students. Any other questions on resolutions 125 through 127? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And that's an aye for me. Can I get a motion for resolutions 128 through 131? School
moved.
resolutions. Moved by Commissioner Malloy. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Adams. Any comments or questions regarding these resolutions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Additional pay resolutions and an agreement here, Resolution 132 and 133. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Powell, seconded by Commissioner Simmons. Any questions or comments on these resolutions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Can I get a motion for Resolution 34?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Malloy, seconded by Commissioner Powell. If that's okay. Any questions or comments on Resolution 134? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Can I get a motion for Resolution 135 through 137?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Malloy. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Powell. Any questions or comments regarding Resolutions 135 through 137? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Can I get a motion for resolutions 138 through 141?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Malloy. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Adams. Any questions or comments regarding resolutions 138 through 141? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Is there a motion for resolution 142?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Malloy. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Adams. Any questions or comments regarding resolution 142? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Can I get a resolution, a motion for resolutions 143 and 144?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Malloy. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Adams. Any questions or comments relating to these resolutions? Commissioner Powell, you have any comments you want to make on any of those policies?
Only to say that all 9 of the level 1,000 were bundled together. These are all district level policies. And then
Your mic.
policy 7,000 left over from.
Your mic, Commissioner Powell? Can't hear you.
Sorry. No, we've had first and second readings. The first of the 2 resolutions covers all of the 1,000 level, which are district level policies. And then policy 7,000 was only segregated because it is in a different section of the policy manual. That's all.
All right. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. The motion carries. Is there a motion for resolution 145?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Malloy. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Simmons. Any questions or comments relating to resolution 145? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. There's some unfinished business here, and so I'm going to, there is the board goals metrics, discussion about the goals here. And I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Pelosi to discuss these. Peluso, excuse me.
Thinking you're Nancy. No, not Nancy, not Nancy. So good evening once again. Just want to revisit our metrics that we have created to address the goals that the board approved at a prior meeting. So just to kind of refresh our memory, our board goals are to improve the fiscal condition of the district, increase academic achievement, increase equity for all students, and then this year we also added and ensure a positive climate in all schools. So when we talk a little bit about our metrics, they're going to be a combination of some board tasks and actions as well as what the district will do to achieve these goals. So really taking a look at them, they are board goals, but it is a combination of board/district goals, right? For goal 1, improve the fiscal condition of the district, one of the metrics that we would like to establish a board process for the inclusion of participatory budgeting in the 23-24 budget cycle. We heard that that was a request and something that the board would like to see, so we'd like to establish a process, identify funding, and then put that into action for 23-24. We also talked a metric of adopting a board budget priority to the administration by December 1st in a board work session, so that we're clear on what the priorities the board has as we establish and create a budget for next school year, as well as establish a comprehensive and inclusive budget process and to make sure we're adhering to all the timelines that are established in the approved budget timeline. Inclusive of those metrics, we also thought it would be important to ensure that actual total revenues for 23-24 do not exceed the budget by more than 1%. And if you look, the next budget, the next bullet is kind of tied to that, as well as ensure that the actual total budget expenditures for 23-24 do not exceed more than 1.5% of the total budget. And this really is talking about aligning our revenue and our expenses to make sure they're more accurately reflected, because our expenses sometimes seem to be anticipated to be higher than necessary. So for us to have a solid budget, we need to be in that 1 to 1.5% range. Also, as part of the improved fiscal condition, we think it's important to approve, obviously, Phase 3 of the Facilities Modernization Plan, and also modify the managed school choice policy to better align the district's financial resources. So we transition to goal number 2, increase academic achievement. The metrics we thought that would be important is increase ELA and math proficiency for students in grade 3 through 8, and utilizing district-approved curriculum, resources, and materials. We need to make sure that we're implementing our materials that we've invested our professional development in and our budget on in the classroom to make sure that they're helping make the lift on ELA and math. And then also, we have increased college and career readiness through comprehensive implementation of a course catalog for students in grades 7 through 12. We have some of our 8th graders that are talking about taking Regents courses and credit courses, and we really need to begin them having the idea of what it looks like for them for a successful path. Like President Elliott was talking about earlier today, about a principal not sure where he took the right courses, hoping that this will alleviate that. For increasing academic achievement as well, increase the understanding of student achievement data and trends through quarterly board work sessions, right? We want to make sure that as a board that we're presenting you with data to understand where we currently are through quarterly work sessions to have some collaborative discussion around student achievement and their trends. And then also increase board participation in annual curriculum selection and review process. We think it's very important that our board members have a voice and know what materials and curriculums are being selected as we achieve to increase academic achievement, and then also reduce the number of unqualified CSE initial evaluation referrals through an implementation of a multi-tiered system of support framework by 15%. If we effectively use a MTSS process, we won't have as many students going to our special education for initial referrals that don't actually qualify. So that's time, that's resources, and, you know, I think if we effectively have an MTSS process, that would eliminate the extra meetings, unnecessary meetings. Continuing on, we'd also increase the percentage of on-time completion of evaluations and CSE meetings to 95% to achieve compliance with the consent decree, and then achieve a 95% completion rate of L transition plans documented in the student management system to support student transitions to receiving schools, right? It's very important when our L students are transitioning out or transitioning to another school that we make sure that they have the supports and they're prepared for those transitions. For goal 3, increasing equity for all students, one of the metrics we said, increase staff participation and professional learning opportunities centered on diversity, equity, and inclusion by 35%. And then establish a 3-year comprehensive district equity plan with clear benchmarks, metrics, and actions. Would be provided timely feedback when requested. And then for ensuring a positive school climate in all schools, you know, align appropriate resources to ensure a safe school environment utilizing crisis go data, including lockdowns, lockouts, and other safety-related incidents. For those that don't know, crisis go is an internal communication that we have that alerts all of cabinet and all other members that need to respond to emergency situations. So having that data could help us make informed decisions about where there are the need for additional supports and additional resources. We want to reduce long and short-term suspensions by 10% to move into compliance with recommendations from New York State Office of Attorney General and the consent decree. I just want to reiterate, Dr. Nelms talked about, you know, some of those behaviors that are still unacceptable in schools, right? We're really looking at that defiance and disruption and some other of those metrics that don't need to elevate to a level of suspension, really concentrating on those to make sure that we reduce those numbers. One of the things we're doing is, with our safety and security team, is auditing all of our buildings over the course of several years. So it's a full-scale audit, and it's really a tool created by the New York State Center for School Safety. And really, we're going to compile those results, bring them forth to say, okay, what could we do to make sure that we're addressing anything that we find in the audit. If there's doors that are not working, if there's, you know, buzzers that aren't working, like what is it that we need to address so that we can make sure that we're using our resources, you know, we're being fiscally responsible and also targeting our resources to where the needs are. We'd also like to increase our school climate survey. School climate survey is a Department of Education tool given out once a year, administered usually once a year. We'd like to double that and make sure that we're administering it twice a year, increasing our level of participation by 25%. We have great student participation, you know, family participation, what we need to increase and get some more feedback from them. So a target of 25%, and then really utilizing what that survey is telling us to have a discussion here to say, what do we want to do and how do we want to address what the surveys are telling us. We think it's important to make sure that we ensure that 100% of participation of all coordinators take part in annual compliance training around the Dignity for All Students Act, right? So they know what to report, how to respond, and how to support. And then we also know, and it's extremely important, to increase the number of schools, personnel trained in the use of restorative practices through the district professional learning opportunities by 25%. So those are the metrics that we've identified to help achieve the goals that the board approved. And I will take any questions if you have them.
So I'll start with those that are on Zoom. Vice President LeBron, you have questions for Superintendent Peluso?
Yes, sorry. Give me one quick second. So more so a comment, I just want to thank you for adding participatory budgeting. I know it's part of Dr. Jallo's fiscal plan, and we have a different person coming in. However, it is still a state-approved plan, so I'm glad to see that it made it on there. And then the board will need to figure out if we are going to commit to a certain amount so that the public and citizens can have a say in how those dollars are spent, and more about that later. And also, I'm asking some of our grassroots organizations to also be involved in these conversations, because I feel like we also need them to help us connect with parents and citizens and get them up to a level of understanding. And the city is also going to be doing participatory budgeting with their budget in this upcoming year. And Malik and myself have had conversations around how do we partner to educate our community around what participatory budgeting is. We are using different tools. I've said this before. Unfortunately, we kind of both had similar ideas and went with two different companies, but the company that we went with is the company that typically does large school districts where citizens don't get to vote on their budget because it'll control their tax levy, including Syracuse. So they are part of the Syracuse school district. And lastly, the only additional comment is that, and I want everyone to know, I do not agree with a goal of like a calendar for the budget and things like that is the minimum requirement. And so I just had to say that, like, the administration should have a calendar that they adhere to and stay on track. That's all.
Thank you, Vice President. Commissioner Malloy?
Sorry, I couldn't unmute. I just wanted to say thank you so much, Dr. Paluzzo, for just responding so well to just some of the considerations or considering the requests by commissioners and giving us that opportunity. But it looks great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Malloy. Commissioner Adams?
I agree with what you said on goal 4, but I need to make a comment and say that I believe that us as school board members, maybe we need to participate in a PD about this code of conduct, because I'm just being honest, some of us don't know what's going on with the code of conduct, and we might get in a situation where we're escalating instead of de-escalating. And so we have to be humble enough to admit that we don't know everything, and maybe we need to have a training about the code of conduct.
Sounds good.
Other than
Maybe
that, I support
another
this.
retreat.
Yeah.
Yep. Commissioner Simmons?
Thank you, Superintendent Paluzzo, for the overview of the goals. I'm excited about goal number 2. I do agree with Commissioner Vice President LeBron's comment regarding the schedule. Like, that's just bare bones minimum. Make sure we're on track with the schedule. But I love the metrics that have been identified. Thank you.
Commissioner Powell?
Yeah, thanks. Since other people have said good things, I'm going to skip the whole praise sandwich thing, but and go straight to my concern. The very last bullet, increasing the number of personnel trained in the use of restorative practices, it doesn't have a context for me. And if the number of personnel we have currently trained is only 10% of all of our staff, then 25% of that just raises it to 12 and a half. It's still a small number. And depending on what our level of training is right now, I would plead and beg for a much higher percentage. We're just not going to move the needle if we start out low and only add a small percentage each time. We're just not going to get where we want to go.
And we do have baseline numbers for all of the ones where we have increased too, so I would be happy to share that. Professional development, and I'm sorry, my mic was off. I turned it off instead of on. So we do have baseline numbers on all of these metrics that we'd be, more than happy to share, and I believe they are included in the presentation that, I had sent in the Friday memo. But yes, I could share some baseline numbers, and we're also trying to be realistic about what we could achieve in this time over the year, right? I would love to say and put on here 100%, right, and increase it by 100%, but I want to put something there that I think that our team could work towards and achieve.
Yeah, for the year.
Yep, for the year.
RT.
I do also want to say I really appreciated the whole Google poll approach that you took. That that was very efficient, I think.
So I just overall, I think it is great. This is for this year to January. We're supposed to meet in January to talk about board goals. And so we thank you, Superintendent Peluso, for adding the metrics to our goals. Just one question I would have, particularly around the restorative practice, is the position that our unions are taking in terms of having their members to participate in restorative practices. And I'd like to put that in the question log, and if we can get, you know, maybe some letters or, you know, something from them indicating that they support our initiative on restorative practices and will participate in this, that would be helpful for me.
I could absolutely follow up on
All
that.
right.
Yep.
President Elliott,
Yes.
I would recommend a motion to approve, adopt the goal metrics.
Yep. So can I get a motion that we adopt the board goals for, well, at least up until December 31st, but can I get a motion for the adoption of these goals? Moved by Commissioner Malloy, is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Adams. Any additional questions regarding the goals? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, and thank you for all the work that you and your team have done, Superintendent Peluso. And the next item on the agenda is the rescinding of a policy. I'm going to turn that over to Commissioner Powell.
Thank you, Madam President. So the second readings are, generally speaking, on the agenda to give the public an opportunity to comment before we actually vote. Last month, we had the first reading, which was really designed to give everyone an opportunity to, every board member an opportunity to make a plea for last-minute changes. And we took each policy one at a time and didn't have any reaction to any of them. So I'm just going to read the policies, and at the end, if anyone has any comments, that way the public knows that what's under discussion, and if they would like to come out and speak to any of these policies next month before we vote on them, that will be their next best opportunity. Those policies are evaluation of board operational procedures, policy 310, booster organizations, policy 1222, security breach and notification, policy 1300, smoking, tobacco use, and use of electronic cigarettes on school district premises, policy 1530, homeschooled students, policy 1741, gifts from the public, policy 1810, parent engagement, policy 1900. A lot of time was spent by our parent community in improving and developing that. Interpreters for hearing impaired parents, policy 1925. Acceptable use of district network policy 1950. Internet policy 4526. Any comments or concerns at this stage?
I have a question, and it may need to be redirected. Regarding the homeschool policy, I'm reflecting on the parent that spoke this evening, and as far as access to Chromebooks, I didn't see any language in that policy around that.
I would have to refer it to our General Counsel, Adrian Neal. This is more about, the policy in front of us is more about whether students can participate with our students, which is why it's silent to that point. There are different state requirements that require us to provide textbooks, but no such requirement for Chromebooks, if I'm not mistaken.
That is accurate. There is not a requirement that we have to. It says we can, and I believe that we currently do not. I would This might be a good question for the question log because there is multiple departments involved. You're talking about the IMT department. You're talking about, the Office of Accountability involved in our practice of whether, that's feasible for the district or not.
Yeah, absolutely. If that could be added to the question log, thank you, General Counsel Neal. That would be helpful just to explore the conversation.
Okay, that concludes the second readings portion. You want to go
Okay.
right to new business?
Okay. Yes, new business. I was looking at the wrong one, so I didn't look at the unfinished business when I was looking at the new business. So yes, Commissioner Powell, please.
Thank you. So this is a much shorter list. There are a total of 6 policies that are coming before the full board for the first time. Right off the bat, there was a suggestion made that we take policy 0101 back to committee and just take another look at the language. If that's, and then bring it back to you starting next month after our policy committee meeting. If that's acceptable to everyone, I would, I simply need a motion to refer policy 0101 back to committee.
Motion.
Moved by Commissioner Powell. Is there a second?
Or Commissioner Malloy.
Right. Commissioner Malloy, is there a second?
I'm happy to second.
All right. Any additional discussion regarding policy 0101? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. That leaves 4 policies that were recommended by the policy committee. The first is policy 100, district policy prohibiting discrimination or harassment of students or employees. Are there any comments or discussion on this particular policy? Hearing none, the next one is policy 0115, student harassment and bullying prevention and intervention. Are there any questions or comments about this proposed language? Seeing no hands on Zoom or on the dais. The next policy is the Equity and Educational Excellence Policy 0201. The recommendation is to rename that Equity, Inclusivity, and Diversity in Education, and to renumber it 0105 so that it stays attuned to the NYSBA manual and numbering system. Any comments about that one? Okay. The last one that we're proposing amendments to is the School Improvement Plan Policy 0400. Any comments or concerns about that one? Seeing none, the last comment to be made is that the policy committee is recommending that the small school units policy 0220 be rescinded. Any comments on that?
Commissioner Powell, I was going to try to raise my hand, but
That's
it was
fine.
going to take longer to figure it out. Just on that one, I would support the rescinding, but I just want to be clear as to why. I think we have a policy that kind of conflicts with what we have in a contract, and that just doesn't make sense. So I just want to put that out there, that is why I'm supporting the rescinding of that policy. Thank you.
Right. This is a policy that hasn't really been implemented or utilized in a meaningful way for many years. And if we're not going to pay attention to it, it'd be better that it weren't there. So, okay. That concludes the first readings, Madam President.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Powell. Can I get a motion to go into executive session to discuss matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation, and to receive the advice of legal counsel.
Motion.
Motion moved by Commissioner Simmons, seconded by Commissioner Adams. All those in favor? Aye. All right, so we're going to go into executive session, and so we will say goodnight to our listening audience and viewing audience, and we will see you back here next week for further board work sessions. So have a great evening. Good night, everybody.